I'm Brian Glanz with GitLab. I'm looking at the web traffic results for GitLab 13.9's release blog post. And at first blush, it looks great in terms of both quantity and quality, and we want to understand why. Let's take a closer look. This is, of course, the 13.9 release blog post. And you can see in its structure, major themes get headlines like Enterprise DevOps, CI/CD. The contributions section, we'll talk a lot about that. The cheerful so much more section. In 13.9, I mashed it up with the quality of life improvements section that William Chia started in 13.8. Thanks for that, William. Great idea. Now, the data that I saw that first got me into this were like what you see in purple here. I was in a custom report in Google Analytics, not really worth keeping, but it made 13.9 look like this monster release blog post in terms of the traffic. So I grabbed data all the way back to 11.0 and charted on the upper right, you can see the most recent 20 release posts, and that from this perspective, 13.9 isn't quite the monster that it looked like, but it is easily double the results of recent posts and still something worth explaining. Each of those other great posts have their own stories. On the lower right, you can see I looked at just a couple versions of quality of the traffic. So bounce rate and percent exit, and 13.9 all the way back to 11.0, in fact, actually has the best ever bounce rate, best ever percent exit. That's amazing. 13.8 is creeping on that position though, and it makes me think maybe something structural came on in January and lifted the results for the whole site there. So the next time I had time, I validated the first 10 days views by looking at 15 days and also by looking site-wide. Didn't learn anything from the 15 days except it just validates the 10 days, but the site-wide on the lower left, we're looking at, in this case, all the page views, not just the release posts, but for the same spans of time. And you can see 13.8 and 9 both with a significant lift, but roughly equivalent lift. And this maps to what Niall was talking about in that video about our SEO changes. So thank you, Team SEO and Team Web and Niall, for the video. On that, though, you would expect 13.9's release post, which you see in purple, to have done similarly well as 13.8, not very differently, particularly because the rest of the graph site-wide roughly maps onto the graph of the results for release posts. Instead, in purple, you can see 13.9 actually did just eyeballing 50% better than I would have predicted based on these site-wide results in black. So what about the quality? Well, in gray in the upper right charted are the site-wide results for bounce rate and percent exit, same 15 days, and then in gold on the lower right, again from this range or in this level of being zoomed in or out, 13.9 and 13.8 standing apart. So nothing structural on bounce rate. We just had two good quality release posts in terms of bounce rate in a row. Good work, teams 13.8 and 13.9. Now, why, right? Why? Usually you get high page views, you get also high bounce rate, which means lower quality. But not this time. Why did we get both, in fact, but also the results, our views being our main KPI there. Looking at the sources was the one thing in Google Analytics that felt like it was teaching me something. Organic search, social direct and referral, and then if you just scan across back to 13.2, you can see 13.9 doing better in every regard. And when you have a multi-channel success like that, and this is the first note, it just means you have a hit. It means that the messaging, the content were just better. Otherwise, we would see, oh, it's because of this referral source, or it's because of this influencer, or this tactic, or something. Instead, we have this multi-channel success. That just means the content was great, it hit the market at the right time, the messages were right, all those things together. And so great job, Team 13.9. Obviously, I didn't do it myself. as messaging lead. We had a lot of influence all the way up to and including Sid in making this better, and a lot of influence from within marketing. Folks twisted my arm on like the themes. Are you sure we don't have something on enterprise DevOps? Or, hey, it would be convenient for us, given this event, if there were something in here about CI/CD. And we didn't do anything inauthentic here. Those are exactly the dozen or so features mentioned in the introduction, the features that should be mentioned. It's just about telling the right narrative and in a way that is going to lock those gears in with other things we're doing in marketing and that makes sense for us overall. So this introduction to the release post takes 5 or 10 minutes to read. Everybody should read it. It's messaging, it's content, it's not docs, right? It's not a changelog. Those things are great for what they are, but this is marketing, and it was great to see it as a release post being useful as a piece of content and to see it more tightly coordinated with what else we're doing in marketing. We can still tug at some of these individual things and get some interesting perspective. So in social, Hacker News rolls up into social here. We made the front page of Hacker News for the first time in a long time, and clearly that made a difference in the data. The 3270 are not, that's not the whole of the difference there. That comes from a lot of the hustle out in social, but it definitely helped, and it helped fuel the Hacker News spillover onto that front page. I'll get to that with some visuals in a second. Let's look at the lift and search for 13.8 and 9 compared to the immediately previous versions there. That's again what Niall was talking about. So just awesome to see this from another perspective, what he was mentioning in his video. And so that is a structural shift, while again, to the first point of the multi-channel success, 13.9 still did even better, right? So, okay. Now, what happened in email? 600 page views sourced in email for 13.2, then 800, 1500, 1200, and then it dies. And I don't know why. Like, did we kill a newsletter here? That was 4 months ago. Did we fall out of a newsletter? But if someone knows, that's 5 or 10% of our release post traffic. Might be nice to know that. Hustle and social, like I was saying, and with the media in general. Like I had this nice interview with Mike for DevOps.com. Fun to get out in front of the media, and there was some great follow-up there. I can't say any one of them, even though they all made their contribution back to us in terms of traffic, none of them were like, wow, we absolutely need to do this thing every month, nor are they going to do it every month. So that's harder to replicate. But having a dedicated section for community contributions, wider community contributions, important note there, is something we could do every month and I think would be worth doing. It rolls into those social data, and the conversation out on Twitter points to the conversation on Hacker News, which pushed it onto the front page, which ultimately led to a good portion of our great results here in the release post. So let's talk a little bit more about this section and put some visuals to it otherwise in social. First of all, we always have an MVP. We have one every month, right? So great job, Andreas. This month we had lots of nominations that were worthy of MVP. Still, we picked one, but that led me to want to write a section like this in tandem with our open DevOps platform positioning. I'm thinking this is really something we should do and that we could do regularly. So Roger from Siemens is another awesome contribution, could have been MVP. Marshall 007 from NASA. No, we didn't pick him because of perseverance, although that's awesome. Great contribution on the GitLab Kubernetes agent here, and just around that, great work. Kev at ZigaGG here. This one is important for lots of reasons. First of all, great contribution to vulnerability reports, but it's also important because it came in at our ultimate tier, and a lot of folks have a sort of misunderstanding that the community contributions are just about the warm and fuzzy, free and open source stuff. It's just a community thing. They sort of put it in that box where actually it, of course, it is that, but also we're open core, right? So our premium and ultimate tiers are source available, and that means devs like Kev can make a contribution like this to our ultimate tier. It means we have a collaborative, trustful, mutually respectful relationship with our customers that our competition doesn't have with their customers and can't have because they're not open. It's a big part of why we can authentically own that term, even outside of the stuff that's technically open source, because it's source available, it's open core. Now, in addition to the quality of the contributions this month, we also had a really good quantity. I'm linking here to this dashboard, which is publicly available. That's cool. I've looked at this before in aggregate for other reasons, and in version 10, roughly speaking, so 10.x, we averaged about 100 community contributions merged per month. In version 11.x, that went to 150. In 12, it went to 200. And in 13, we have enjoyed an average of 250 community contributions merged every month. That's amazing. We are on track for 300 in 14.x. We're almost there. And there's 13.9. You can see we came in at actually 301, went to press with 299. So the quantity, I mean, by itself, that sounds amazing, and it is every single month, right? But also it's not surprising, and it lends more weight to the idea that we could have a section like this and follow on distribution and marketing efforts every month. Now, let's look at a couple of those. I nudged the social team and I nudged the evangelism team to say, hey, I'm writing this section. We should find these folks out there in the wild, as it were, and thank them out there as well. And in that regard, here's our brand account, finding Roger from Siemens, our evangelism crew, mentioning Siemens and follow-up. Awesome work here, Michael and everyone. The community celebrating along with them. Here's Michael finding Kev. Other folks just saying, isn't Kev great? Yes, he is. So is Michael. So is this Michael. All that's to say, like, stuff like this celebration happens every month, but the coordination between what's in the post, what other themes marketing is working with, celebrating with the community, and between what's in the post and the social team and the evangelism team, it's not always quite so tight. And I think we really put those gears to work together in 13.9, and that spilled over into the results. So I would say it's an engineered groundswell. It's not inauthentic at all, but we engineered this success. We always do stuff like this, which is why I have a couple of tabs open just to say our evangelism team, our social team, they are so on it. They probably would have done this stuff anyway. I still think it helps that we actually took the time to coordinate our efforts. And I hope that's the case. Our social team also has a great idea, which I'm curious to hear more about in terms of the data from their end of the pipe. These little product release updates, and it looked like they were getting some traction. Again, I'm just getting the public view of these, but I do see some of those spilling over into the Google Analytics, and I would just love to hear from the social team, the evangelism team, how they feel about the collaboration here and its effect on our results. I think that plus the collaboration on the major themes really made 13.9 a success. And of course, I'll be sharing this with the rest of the product marketing team. We'll continue from our end looking to collaborate all the more on these release posts so they can be useful content in addition to being useful to our customers and our end users. And thanks everyone for your help on 13.9.